Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for being here in this very, very difficult moment for myself and my family. I just wanted to thank the Mangalisos for being here, Ondumdum for being here, the Kundas for being here, and really, family for myself and my wife was everything. And I cannot thank the Ndumdum family enough for delivering me the perfect wife. I met Umimi in 1997, and from the time we met, I was in awe. I couldn't believe. I was totally captured. My imagination was captured. Intellectually, she was just superior. She was so loving, so generous. She really, really, really believed in me, and from the time I just couldn't believe. So I decided to adjust everything about myself, and my life was a dedication to her. I thought to myself, as a man, you receive love, Vanya, but what I received from her was unconditional love. Umimi supported me in everything that I did, no matter how small it was. She was like, wow, if I spoke of hip hop and, my time overseas, she was very, very supportive. But more importantly, she was the perfect companion. I'm a man who lives life to the full. I needed a partner that was going to save a life, someone that was going to be as dynamic as I am, someone who would travel with me, someone who would experience life and love, and more importantly, someone I could build family with. Now you look at South Africa and you think of the ills that we are faced with. It's a dark moment, not only in our country but across the world. And for us as black people, the problem is family. 90% of our issues that we face stem from the fact that the black family structure is broken. And just being with Vanya, more than the business, more than what we achieved as a couple, I think family was the most important thing. And wanting a big family, I'll tell you straight up and down. She is 3 years older than me. When she said she wanted 4 children, I was 21 years old. Just graduated from college. It was a lot to take in, but and for real, I also want to thank myself for being brave. And recognizing the opportunity when it came to me. And we start this conversation. I want to thank Zam. Zam is like my best friend. I came to visit him, and she was staying next door to him. We start this conversation, and as this conversation evolves, her story is my story. Her mother was very similar to my mother. Xhosa family structure, the way she was educated, her aspirations reflected my aspirations, and it was about 2 people who have got the same values coming together. And I think when 2 people come from the same background and same values, it makes things easier. I know that there is love, and I received love, but trust me, being with Vanya was like coming home. I was living overseas. I was studying in Paris, and I was living like an animal, actually. Those 5 years, trust me, those 5 years, like 15, I made sure that in those 5 years I experienced everything. And coming to Vanya, well, lots of skiing, horse riding, Saint-Tropez and the lights, and everything that comes with it. But just being with her was amazing. And even in a conversation, you think of South Africa transitioning from apartheid into this democracy. Mr. Mbeki is there, he's talking African Renaissance. I come from a family where we were taught that you have to make a meaningful contribution to society. How are you going to make a difference? And that's exactly what she was saying. But and reading Credo Mutwa, I'm going to tell you straight up, I was groomed to be like a young Englishman. I was not supposed to come to South Africa. But, understanding that we are African and how are we going to reconstruct this African identity, you think of South Africa in 1997, academically we were proud and we loved Africa, but there were no expressionism of this thing that was happening, talking about ancestors in an environment like this, you were hushed. If you came with isishweshwe skirt, people would point fingers and say how cute, but Vanya really, really believed in this. And I'm saying to people, especially in the creatives, whatever it is that you're doing, you need to tell your own unique stories. You need to authenticate yourself and validate yourself, because we were never interested in local tradition as much as it was local first, but how do we make a contribution to global trends? And if you want people to take you seriously, whether it is in film, whether it is in food, whatever it is, you've got to think, look within to be able to express. And that is what she brought to us. So, for me, a woman who was just a visionary, not only was she good on the concept, but, someone who understood business, she was creative, I was the number, she was everything and I was the muscle. I was there to protect her. I bought her. I thought, no, I don't want my wife working outside. My dad's never had that, my mother worked with my father and I wanted the same thing. And it's one thing to have this concept, but the way in which South Africa at large responded, it was just amazing. I mean, you open and this thing starts. And you start to explain to people what this thing is and they all get excited, We open a shop in Rosebank, we open a shop in Cape Town. Shout out to my people in Durban. Durban is deep, Joe. They don't come shopping with shopping bags. People would come with suitcases in Ritual. I'd meet, like my taxi bosses, the guys who gave me a lot of money, meeting at Richards Bay with Dibana Nenkabi. I didn't know they were Ngabis at the time. They coconut now. You see these young boys looking a bit dangerous. And, people, they took us into their confidence and we were able to express ourselves and be ourselves, I don't have to introduce myself when I walk into a room. I am what I am, Lindy and Victor Mangaliso's child, and Mangaliso, a man of God, Limani, Kwinja Kwantu and Kungani's father, Vanya's wife, and a true patriot. No, Vanya's husband, So that was our story. That's how we started Sangores, and in the midst of this, this beautiful romance, my wife, like I said, loved me unconditionally. We every time, like from the time Limani was coming, I knew I had to get married, and every time a child would come, it would just be such a blessing, such warmth, it was everything that I expected, but even more because I was doing it with her, and then even with the children, the naming of the children, the excitement, you think of the name Limani, and then it's like Ukwinga, and then Kwantu, Mandulo, that is what she wanted, and that's what I wanted. All I could ever do was support her, and my children and my family life still remain my greatest achievement. I've traveled the world, accolades, made a lot of money, but for me, when the six of us together, that's where the magic happens. Even when we go on holiday, guys, we've been accused, like we go to Durban and we don't meet relatives, and but for us, just getting to, obviously you book in wherever, you go to Salt Rock, I love to surf, my boys love fishing, and then we just sort of, if people are sitting here, we find ourselves sitting on the other side, and it's just very close, The interaction is just incredible, so, there are people in this world, and I'll go on to say, without a doubt, Anna, my wife is the most incredible person I have ever met. Anna, my wife remains the most incredible person I've ever met, who's made the biggest impact in my life. And I'm saying to everyone, whatever it is that you're doing, think local tradition, global trend. Let us live this. Let us stand up, because South Africa, if you think of where it was 20 years ago, we've lost confidence. But remember, when you lose confidence, you need to go back into the traditions of yourself that made you who you were. Right? We need to go back to finding meaning in our lives, and we all need to stand for something. I know that's what Vanya would have wanted. So let me tell you, as I conclude, being Vanya's husband was one of the greatest pleasures of my life, and she lives in me. God and I are one. God lives through me, and now that she's an ancestor, she will continue to live through me, because God and I are one.